and welcome to week 5 of Building in Public. My name is Jacob O'Connor, and I'm 22 years old. I host a podcast, and I'm in the process of opening a restaurant with my best friend, and this is where I document that journey. In this episode, you're going to hear about $700 million, Daytona Beach, 100 letters, tens of thousands of dollars, an Instagram post, and more. And welcome back, and welcome back, and welcome back, and welcome back. All right, so I just got back from the gym. Today was chest day. I've decided in 2024, chest day is going to be almost every day. So that's been pretty much the norm for me. And for the last few months, I've been drinking a protein brand called Just Ingredients. That is the supplement company. That's what I'm drinking right now. It's just like their chocolate flavor. And a question that I get is like, how do you find guests for the podcast? I've had on some really cool people, as you've probably seen in the intro, some pretty big names. And the answer is a wide array of different avenues that I reach out to people, and that's how they come in the podcast. But in this specific example, actually, I knew nothing about Just Ingredients. I didn't know the founder or anything like that. And I posted on my Instagram story that I started using that brand, and I tagged Just Ingredients on Instagram. And she actually DM'd me and said like, hey, I appreciate you sharing this. And at that point I said, I've got a podcast. You seem like you got a pretty cool story, because I'd done a little bit of research after that. And I invited her to come on the podcast. She said she would love to do that. We just have to get it scheduled now. And so there's a pretty good chance she's going to come on the podcast. And that was just kind of like one of the unique ways that people will come on the podcast. It's not as difficult as people think. It's more about just like reps, just reaching out over and over again to a wide enough people. If you cast a wide enough net, you're bound to catch some fish is a way that I like to think about it, at least. So diving into some of the key things that I did this week, the first one being for just documenting in general, I ended up ordering a GoPro camera. So that's what I'm recording on right now. I'm curious if the video quality is going to be different from last week. I was using a Sony FX30 last week, which is a little bit higher quality camera. But this is going to be good because I like to run, and so I can take the GoPro out on runs and just kind of, it can go on the beach, it can be in the water, it can go in different terrains that I wouldn't want to bring the other camera to. So I'm testing it out right now. And I actually went to Daytona Beach a couple days ago, and I brought both cameras, ended up recording a little bit of footage, but to set up this camera, I needed a mic to hook up with it, and the Rode mics were missing one piece of equipment to get it all connected. I wasn't able to record any audio, but I do have a couple videos. It was really scenic out there, so I'll go ahead and just put those in now. So I ended up running about 10 miles. It was a pretty good day. I actually felt like I could handle a lot more than that, which is nice. It's kind of got me wondering if I want to run an ultra marathon here in a couple months, which for those of you that don't know, I've ran 3 or 4 of them in the last year. I just kind of got into it, and it's been on my bucket list to cross off 100 miles. The farthest I've made it is 80. And I figured I was going to be too busy to have time to do one come this spring and summer with the restaurant opening and everything that's been going on. But I don't know, when I get out there and I start running, especially after that run on the beach, I just felt like I really want to get that crossed off the bucket list. And I start like, in my head, I'm like, oh, you can make time. You can find time to train. And I don't know. We'll see. Maybe there's an ultra marathon I'll do in the spring. Continuing on, so I went to Daytona Beach, had a really good run, got the GoPro in, and then I had a podcast to speak with someone named Ryan Smith. He's got a super cool story. He's here in Orlando, which is where I'm currently at as we kind of get things built out with the restaurant, then we'll move back to Kansas. But Ryan's got a super cool story. He's probably early 40s, but he has about $700 million worth of self-storage spaces and mobile homes. And that's a lot of money. It's really cool that people I've gotten to connect with through the podcast that have found such unique ways to become successful. And so that episode will come out on Monday, but I learned so much from Ryan, and he's definitely one that I'm going to keep in touch with. And then for a little bit of insight to the restaurant this week, like I mentioned, we're building it out in Wichita, Kansas, which is where both John and I went to college. And it's an empty strip mall, so there's nothing built out. It's just got the concrete floor, it's got the bare bone walls, and it's got like a small AC unit. But everything else still has to be installed. So we're building this from the ground up, which is a super unique experience. And one of the things that we're looking at right now is we need to make an order of furniture. And I am just shocked by how much furniture costs. You guys probably won't be, but we had an invoice come in, and it's going to be an order of furniture that's in the tens of thousands of dollars, which when you think about a restaurant, you think it's got the chairs, it's got the booth, it's got the table. Personally, I didn't think that it would be quite that much. It is what it is, but it was just kind of eye-opening to see how much furniture actually costs, and to get it shipped in. It's coming out of, I think, Tennessee is where they're shipping it from, and then to have them install it. So it's going to be a pretty nice chunk of change. And one of the interesting things I learned about that is, as you're working with these different vendors, they have different terms, which pretty much means like when you go to purchase something, you're not going to pay tens of thousands of dollars up front for something like furniture. The terms that they set for this is actually called 50% net 30. So what that means is you're going to pay 50% of the total invoice, whatever that amount is. You're going to pay 50% up front, and then once they ship the furniture and it's installed, you have 30 days after that point to pay the remaining 50% of that balance. So it's 50% up front. They come, they drop off the furniture, they install it. You have 30 days to pay the other 50%. So just a little nugget that I learned that I picked up this week. And then we have the drawings from the architect of the restaurant that are going to go up for bid, meaning that other construction companies will submit a bid, meaning that they look at our drawings and they say, okay, for what you guys need, I can build it out for this much money. And so it's kind of competing on who has the best quality, the reputation, and also how much are we going to have to pay this one versus that one versus that one. So it's a couple things to figure out there, but that'll be coming up in the next few weeks. Moving on, I posted an Instagram post last night about building in public, which I know I just did an episode last week on that, and I've done an episode on the podcast, but I actually find that there's probably a 30 to 40% overlap between the podcast listeners and my Instagram followers, meaning that not everyone that listens to the podcast follows me on Instagram. In fact, I find a large amount of people don't. And then a lot of people that follow me on Instagram don't follow me on the podcast. So it's kind of like vice versa there. So I always try and duplicate both things on both platforms. I think that's just how marketing works in general, is you want to have multiple channels that you're pushing the same message out through. So I made a post last night about building in public. If you guys haven't checked it out, you're not following me, make sure you do. I'm at Jacob O'Connor on Instagram. And then as I'm thinking about like content ideas for the YouTube channel, what's going to be valuable, what could be kind of cool to see. This week's episode's different than the last couple. This one is set up more of like a rundown. Like I have a list of items that I'm just going to hit on as updates almost. Hopefully that's valuable. Your guys' feedback is really what I want to drive the type of content that I'm making. If you have specific questions for things you'd like to see, if you have video ideas, things you'd like me to get more in depth on, that's the feedback that I need so that I can make this the most valuable for you guys. One idea that I did have that I'm currently thinking about is called 100 letters. So one of the things for the podcast that I do is I'll actually handwrite a letter, and I'll find an address for the business or someone, if I know them, I'll ask for their address, and I'll send the letter out trying to get a new guest to come on the podcast. Because you can reach out to them on Instagram through their DM, you can send them an email, you can do all these different ways online, but sometimes actually a handwritten letter will get you an opportunity that you wouldn't have gotten just through reaching out online. They may have too many followers, they may have their inbox that's bombarded with hundreds of emails or thousands of emails, and sometimes the way to get through is a handwritten letter. And so one of the things I'm thinking about is a short 5-10 minute video of me actually writing out the letters, telling you what's in the letter, who I'm sending it out to, and waiting to get responses, and then putting that all together in the video. Or maybe it's two different videos. One of me putting the letters together, telling you what's in it, who I'm sending it to, and sending it out. And the second video is me getting the responses and actually getting the guests on the podcast. I'm not sure which one I want to do yet, but I think that's going to be a video idea for the future. But all in all, it was, again, a busy week, as they all are. I feel like I don't really need to say that anymore, but I feel like I've made progress in general. I've definitely learned a lot. It was a great week. So like I always say, if you guys enjoy this, please share it with a friend. And if you have feedback for, hey, slow down, I want you to go more in depth on X, Y, and Z specifically, more than happy to do it. If you want me to go higher level with things, more than happy to do it. Just let me know what you guys want to see, whether that's sending me a text, a DM, an email, or commenting on the video. But thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next week for week 6.